after its mid-season break in the show I thought I'd have no interest in before it started. I was really looking forward to it and I'm glad it's back, so let's take a look at Star Trek Prodigy 106. Kobayashi without the maru, because Discovery already used that as an episode title this year, so I guess there isn't that much cross-talking between the writer rooms. So spoiler alert if you haven't seen this episode. And yeah, I forgot how good this show looks. The opening scene and the way that the ship comes out of warp and then goes into the bridge and the whole look of it and even the texture of the characters is absolutely brilliant and still in tip-top form. So the crew are still on the run, and after what they find out to be a 4,000 light year jump, they seem to be safe. But even the Janeway hologram is shocked at the distance that they've covered in such a short time. Now, the crew wants to go to the Federation. They know the diviner is always going to be after them and they don't want to have to rely on a ship that they fully don't understand yet, or at least don't fully understand its capabilities. Dal's worried that they'll be arrested for theft as the ship is, after all, Federation property, but Jank and Pog thinks they'll be seen as refugees. Now, everyone agrees apart from Dal. And yeah, because we had a little bit of a break, I forgot these characters aren't still fully established yet. They're still working on it. And while we do get a lot of answers to some questions that have been going on since the first episode, we don't really get a lot of building in the characters throughout the crew here. So, surprisingly enough, although it does make sense, but I was shocked given the size of the ship, they find the holodeck and it's a first for all of them. And this episode is maybe the best use of the holodeck that we've seen since Badgie was created in Lower Decks. Dal finds the Kobayashi maru test and wants to take it. But before he takes up the holodeck test, Holo Janeway offers him the game headset from, well, the game is a better solution. Now, this season has kind of avoided the amount of Easter eggs that Lower Decks has just thrown them at us, but this episode does have quite a few. And one of the best ones is when the Kobayashi maru simulator initiates, it's none other than the Enterprise D bridge. They don't really reference it, but it certainly is a Galaxy class bridge. And speaking of Easter eggs, we get a lot of familiar faces and even more familiar voices in here as well. Dal wants to pack the ship with the best that Starfleet has to offer. So when it's crewing up the ship, we get Uhura, Odo, Spock and Crusher all as the bridge crew. And it's pieced together from sort of classic episodes of Trek apart from Crusher's lines because sadly Leonard Nimoy and Renée Auberjonois are no longer with us and Nichelle Nicholas is at an age where she's not really acting anymore. So for the first few minutes, I loved seeing all this dialogue put together and chopped up, and it worked. It really worked in the setting of the bridge and the fact that he's taking the Kobayashi maru test. This is all pretty much classic Trek. And it plays out the way that the programme is designed to, but Dal isn't Starfleet, so he doesn't feel any obligation to help save the Kobayashi maru, and he sees it only as a survival, so in his first attempt, he just wants to sort of get out of there and flee the situation. Now, I know a lot of people, including myself, had issues with Dal being a bit of a dick in the first half of this season, and it doesn't seem to be letting up. They really do need to learn to make this character a little bit more likeable in order to make the show work. It's the only thing I think that kind of really lets it down. I'm willing to let it off with the pace so far, because we are getting drip fed some answers, and it is going to lead to something, no doubt, but this Dal guy, man, they really need to work on him. I think he doesn't really want to listen to anyone else but himself. He fails, of course, again and again, over and over, and it is a little bit of a Groundhog Day style thing. But this was a great way to bring back some old faces and voices to new Trek. But maybe they do rely on them too much for this, because it is, like I say, all sort of copy and pasted older dialogue from these characters' original episodes. So sometimes Spock and Uhura, when they're cutting stuff from the movies or the classic series, it doesn't really sync up or feel the same or sound the same, I suppose, is the way I'm trying to describe it. They could have done a little bit more work to make the audio a little bit cleaner and make it all sound as if they're in the same room, because sometimes the words do fit, but there's just something about the audio that doesn't sync up with how, you know, the Crusher hologram's talking or how Dal's talking in the same room. So yeah, I wish they had worked a little bit harder on that. But the fan service was nice. I just don't hope they rely on it or bring it back too much again. Lower Decks is a show that really handles fan service and Easter eggs really well. In fact, it throws it in your face and it admits it's thrown it in your face. And Prodigy, up until this point, it kind of stood on its own 2 feet. It wasn't really tying in too much to any franchises. Yeah, we get looks of Discovery and Enterprise and a few other ships and mentions of things in the first half of this season, but this is by far the heaviest that they have leaned into this in this season so far. But I guess probably to give it its fair due, that might be what happened when you use 60-year-old audio. They might not be able to have the facility to actually clear it up or make it sound like it's in the same room. Maybe it's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Dal finally clicks on that the point of the programme isn't to be the best, but to face a no-win scenario. So he does come up with a few ideas on how to beat it, but then, like everyone else, you've got to accept that this isn't something you can go and do unless you're willing to cheat like Kirk did. But while Dal and Jank and Pog are having fun on the holodeck, Gwyn isn't really adjusting to her new life that well. She realises that she's on her own for her first time, and her and Zero want to solve the mystery and the problem of where this ship's from and why her father's after it. Gwyn isn't taken to her new life that well. She realises that she's on her own for her very first time, so her and Zero want to solve some of the mysteries of this ship. Namely, how can it travel so far, so fast and even shock the Janeway hologram, but also where did it come from? And they do ask the computer on the hologram directly, and it's kind of weird that it never really occurred to anyone to do this before, and she does try and tell them. And I say she tries, it turns out that the records have been classified, so the mystery here deepens a little bit. Parts of the logs are also written in Gwyn's species' own language, which does raise another question of, although the Diviner and Gwyn haven't really encountered Starfleet before, in fact Gwyn says, as far as she's aware, they've never met Starfleet, someone of her species has, or someone from Starfleet has certainly run into her species. They managed to decode these encrypted logs, but the data is so big it's going to take them months to go through, and this reminded me of Voyager. I think it was season 5 when they got that message from Starfleet and they spent half the season trying to decode it and get the letters and find out, you know, if there was another way home, and it all resulted in that Dauntless storyline. So I like that they are following similar beats as long as they don't copy it too much. But we do get answers in this episode as well. We find out who the ship's captain was, and I was absolutely right, it was Chakotay, so thank God for that. I mean, it wasn't a really spectacular guess. I didn't really see how else it could fit into the season. I just hope it's not the last time we're going to see him. We've only seen him in a sort of flashback hologram form. And to find out what's going on with the ship and the crew, we're going to need answers about what's happened to the captain. Now, the hologram Janeway realises straight away that this isn't the ship's first crew, and she can't answer anything really about the Protostar, about where it's been, where it's from, or how it got there. So although we do find out who the captain is, that's all the progression we really get in terms of the big story here. And while I said I'm glad that this show is back, I do think it does need to work on the pace a little. There's not a lot going on beyond the Kobayashi Maru storyline in the reveal at the end. There's only a few episodes of this show left, so I hope that they do start giving us some answers specifically about how the ship got there and why the Diviner is after it. I also hope to see we get some familiar faces. They visit some planets, run into some Kazons, run into some Borg. Maybe not the Borg, but you know what I mean. This show is kind of underplaying what it can do at the moment. While the animation is brilliant, and the scenes of Dal getting introduced to the holodeck were absolutely fantastic, they need to put more stuff on screen. We need more species, new species, familiar species, and maybe less of the familiar voices. Now, while I did like this episode, I know I'm going a little bit hard on it, but that's just the nature of the beast. I've got very high expectations when it came to this, and like I say, I was surprised that I've enjoyed this show as much as I have. I think it might be my favourite show of all the new Trek. But we've got a whole year of Trek coming up with Picard, Strange New Worlds, the rest of Discovery, and a brand new series of Lower Decks. So we're not going to be short of things to talk about. But let me know what you think about this episode in the comments below. Or, as always, you can reach me on Twitter at The Geeks Reviews. What do you think of the pace? What did you think of Captain Chakotay? And what do you think is going to happen next? I want to hear all your theories if you want to post them. If you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that as well. It would mean so much. Thanks for watching. As always, I've been Al.